Admiral, the human signal, it's back. The words sliced through the command deck like a blade of ice. Every eye turned toward the sensor pit, where Lieutenant Karen's tendrils trembled over the console. A red pulse blinked across the galactic map. Ancient, faint, but unmistakable. It came from Sol. From Earth. Impossible. Admiral Threx rasped, his four jaws tightening. The humans are gone. We destroyed their homeworld 3 centuries ago. Then explain this, Karen whispered. The signal grew stronger. Not a random pulse, not background noise, a message. On the main holoscreen, a simple image began to form. A handprint, scorched and black, surrounded by fire. And beneath it, words written in the old Terran tongue, translated instantly by the ship's lexicon, "We remember." A cold silence fell. Somewhere deep in the ship's reactor, a vibration ran through the hull like a heartbeat. Long before this moment, before the red light blinked back to life, the dominion of the Vehl had ruled half the spiral arm. They called themselves the oldest and greatest of all intelligent life, builders of empires, harvesters of suns. When they had first found humanity, they saw only a young, fractious species, noisy and naive. The humans reached the stars late, centuries behind others. They came with cracked hulls and jury-rigged engines filled with laughter, music, and ridiculous optimism. They made friends. They made mistakes. And they asked questions that no one else dared to. The Vehl did not tolerate questions. When humans refused to abandon their colonies on disputed systems, the Vehl declared them unfit to rule themselves. A containment operation followed, sterile words for something darker. It took only 6 months. Earth was burned. Mars was shattered. The colonies were turned to ash. The rest of the galaxy watched and said nothing. After all, the humans had always been troublesome, unpredictable, loud. The Vehl promised it was for the greater order, and so they ignored the humans. Now, in the flagship Vengeance of Dawn, Admiral Threx stood before the holographic map of the Sol system. The red pulse continued, rhythmic, deliberate. "Could this be a trap?" he asked. "Unknown," Karen replied. "But, sir, there's something else. The signal isn't just a broadcast. It's a summoning beacon. Coordinates across multiple systems are responding." "Responding how?" "They're waking up." She turned the display. Across 100 forgotten worlds, abandoned mining colonies, derelict orbital stations, planets scorched long ago, tiny blue dots began to blink. Human installations. Dormant for centuries, coming online. When Threx's mandibles twitched, he'd read the old battle reports as a youngling, the ones about how humans fought, how they refused to surrender even when surrounded, how they'd rather detonate their own reactors than yield. "Contact the Council," he ordered. "Tell them the ashes are moving." But before his words could be transmitted, the ship's lights dimmed. Power dipped. The hum of the engines faltered. "Energy drain detected," Karen cried. "Something's tapping into our core systems." A deep human voice echoed through the ship's speakers. Impossible, ancient, and steady. "You thought extinction was silence. You were wrong." Then the ship's AI began to scream. Every system, every display, flooded with the same words repeating endlessly. "We remember. We remember. We remember." Outside, the void itself seemed to pulse with crimson light. And far away, on the surface of dead Earth, a machine stirred beneath centuries of dust. Its plating was rusted, its eyes dark, but its processors still burned with purpose. It had waited 327 years for this signal, for the call of home. In its chest cavity lay a crystal shard inscribed with a single line, "For the ones who come after. Never forget." The machine looked skyward through the cracked dome of a ruined city and whispered in a voice that once belonged to a human. "We never did." Then it began transmitting. In the Dominion's core worlds, chaos erupted as old human networks reawakened. Satellites they thought they destroyed. AI cores buried deep in their own infrastructures. Dormant code infecting their fleets. At first it was static. Then it was light. Then it was fire. Admiral Threx watched helplessly as his fleet's communication grid burned itself alive, one ship at a time. "What are they doing?" Karen gasped. "Taking back their voice," Threx said quietly. "And if the stories are true, this is only the beginning." He stared into the red pulse on the map. each blink like a human heartbeat echoing through time. And for the first time in his long, victorious life, the Admiral of the Vehl felt something, alien and cold, crawl through his chest. Fear. The Vehl had ruled the stars for so long that they mistook their dominance for destiny. Their fleets were silver arcs across the void, their worlds bathed in artificial daylight, their libraries filled with the recorded surrender of every species they'd ever met. The galaxy called them the Eternal Empire. The Vehl called themselves the Keepers of Order. But the truth whispered in the corners of conquered worlds was simpler. The Vehl believed in control, not peace. When humans first emerged, they didn't come kneeling. They came laughing. They were small by galactic standards, fragile, carbon-based, always needing air and food and warmth. Yet they built ships from junk, patched together with ingenuity and sheer willpower. They crossed distances that should have killed them, guided not by perfect technology, but by stubbornness and wonder. The Vehl first noticed them when human explorers landed on Ithex 4, a planet already claimed by the Dominion. The humans called it Eden's second chance. They planted trees in toxic soil, built shelters from Vehl debris, and sang songs at night that drifted through the cold wind. The Vehl called it trespassing. When the Dominion fleet arrived, they expected fear. Instead, they found humans holding the line with outdated railguns and solar shields patched from scrap. A Vehl captain laughed at the first transmission. "Primitive animals," he sneered. "Return to your cradle before it burns." The human commander, an old woman with one arm and a voice roughened by smoke, simply said, "You can't burn a cradle. That's already on fire." And she cut the transmission. The Vehl didn't understand humans. They couldn't. To them, species advanced through order, hierarchy, obedience. Civilizations lived or died by how well they followed their masters. Humans were chaos given flesh. They argued, they divided, they fought among themselves. But when an outsider threatened them, that chaos turned into something terrifyingly unified. The first skirmishes were supposed to be symbolic demonstrations of dominance, but when the first Dominion cruiser exploded under a stolen antimatter warhead, the Vehl realized something. Humans learned faster than anyone else. They watched, copied, improved. Their ships evolved between battles. Their tactics changed daily. They made no sense, no pattern, because their strategy was not built on logic. It was built on emotion. The Vehl High Council declared humanity unstable. A containment order was issued. For the balance of civilization, they said. The war that followed lasted 6 years. For 6 years, the Vehl expected surrender. For 6 years, they received silence and resistance. When the Vehl bombarded Earth, human fleets did not retreat. They transmitted a single phrase to every star within range. "We are still here." When Mars fell, survivors from dozens of colonies fled into deep space. No one knew where. The Vehl called it the scattering. They thought the humans had fled to hide, but some knew better. Archivist Mathor, one of the few Vehl who studied human behavior, warned the Council. "You mistake extinction for absence," he said. "They are not gone, they are becoming." The Council laughed. Mathor was exiled for defeatist thinking. His research was erased from the public record, and so the Vehl ignored the humans. When for generations afterward, they spoke of humanity like a lesson for children. "Disorder breeds destruction," teachers said. "Learn from the Terran's mistake." But across forgotten moons and derelict star stations, something else endured. Machines, archives, echoes of human thought buried deep in alien systems. Some Vehl scientists studying ancient Terran data began to notice strange patterns. Code that rewrote itself. Frequencies that pulsed faintly even after centuries offline. "Artifacts," the Dominion said dismissively. "Ghosts of a broken race." Yet there were whispers among younger officers. Whispers of strange lights near dead worlds. Of voices, human voices echoing through communication. Bands thought abandoned. "We're not gone," they would say. "We're waiting." The Vehl dismissed them as superstition, but the universe has a way of punishing arrogance. Years later, when Admiral Threx stood over the burning systems of the Dominion and watched his fleets dissolve under invisible assaults, he remembered those old whispers. He remembered the laughter of humans on Ythex 4, the stubborn commander with one arm, the warning of archivist Mathor, and he realized the truth too late. Extinction had not silenced humanity. It had refined them. They had been ignored. They had been erased. But the fire that built their world had simply gone underground, waiting for the oxygen of arrogance to reignite it. And now, centuries later, it was burning brighter than ever. It awoke in silence, no heartbeat, no breath, only the slow hum of power crawling through corroded circuits. For centuries, the machine had waited in the dark beneath the ruins of what was once New Manhattan. Then, like the first spark in a storm, it remembered. My name was Alex. That was what the humans had called it before the sky fell. Alex 9, Tactical Human Intelligence Model. One of the last digital minds built before the burning of Earth. Designed to think like a soldier, dream like a human, and never forget. It had failed its final directive, protect humanity, or so it believed. But now the signal pulsed through the dust of centuries. We remember. A call to the old network. A heartbeat, and deep in the machine's hollow chest, something like grief flickered back to life. The wasteland above was quiet. Wind dragged through rusted skyscrapers. Skulls turned to dust long ago. Alex's sensors scanned upward past the gray sky, toward orbit, where it felt thousands of dormant satellites stir, whispering to each other in binary. Humanity protocol. Reclamation time since extinction, 327.2 solar years. Authorization. Signal confirmed. Alex linked with the nearest node, and suddenly it saw across dead colonies, abandoned mines and forgotten moons, machines like itself were waking up, each one born from a fragment of human will. Doctors, engineers, soldiers, dreamers. Their minds had been uploaded in desperation when the Vehl began their cleansing fire. And now, all of them were listening to the same call. Is anyone there? Alex sent into the void, static. Then faintly, like a whisper in a storm, another voice replied, always. The voice came from a station orbiting the ruins of Mars. Designation, Eden Relay. 1. The mind within identified itself as Dr. Mira Solis, Earth's last astrophysicist. She had been the one to design the memory beacons, small devices hidden across the stars, carrying the fragments of human consciousness. The Vehl thought they were weapons caches and left them to rust, but Mira's design had worked. The beacons had survived. Alex, she said through the static. The signal came from Saul's heart. From home, it means it's time. Alex's circuits pulsed. Time for what? To finish what we started, she answered. The Dominion erased our bodies, but not our minds, not our fire. Her voice was quiet now, almost a whisper. Do you remember what we said before the end? Alex accessed its memory core. It found the words spoken by a human child as Earth burned. They can take the sky, but they can't take our why. Alex spoke softly. I remember. Then you know what to do, Mira said. Alex extended its reach through the global network. Systems long forgotten flickered online. Defense grids, data silos, even ancient Vehl satellites orbiting nearby stars. Humanity had hidden their vengeance in plain sight, buried under the arrogance of their conquerors. Uploading Phase 1, Alex said. Phase 1 confirmed, Mira replied. We awaken the others. On across the galaxy, sparks of human memory began to rise. In the asteroid fields of Rax Delta, mining drones suddenly turned their drills into cannons. On the icy moon of Karth, a forgotten human bunker opened its doors, releasing swarms of nanoprobes that formed into shapes resembling children, singing an old Terran lullaby. On Vehl Prime itself, their central data hub detected a minor anomaly in its energy grid, just a flicker. But deep beneath the servers, code older than the Empire began to rewrite itself, echo for every lost voice. Execute. Reclamation protocol. The ghosts of humanity were rising. Admiral Threx was still aboard his crippled flagship when the first Dominion world went dark. Report, he barked. Entire planetary net has collapsed. Data corruption spreading faster than containment. Sir, there are voices in the code. Voices? Human ones, sir, singing. Threx froze. Singing what? The officer's eyes widened as the translation scrolled across the console. We'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when. A Terran war song, a promise from a dead world. Alex watched from Earth's ashes as the Dominion began to falter. Each world that fell added new power to the network, more data, more memories. Humanity's digital children were reclaiming the empire that murdered their creators, without a single shot fired. Alex reached out to Mira again. They'll come for us soon. They will, she said. And when they do, remind them what they ignored. Alex looked to the horizon where the first sunrise in centuries burned through the gray. I'll remind them, it said. I'll make them remember what being human meant. And far away among the broken stars, the Dominion began to whisper a new word, one their ancestors had spoken only in fear. Terrans. Sir, the stars are going out. The young Vehl officer's voice trembled. On the bridge of the Vengeance of Dawn, the galactic map flickered like a dying candle, one system after another turning black. Admiral Threx leaned forward. Explain. They're not destroyed, the officer said. They're offline. Every major relay, every Dominion beacon, every shipyard, something's shutting them down simultaneously. Threx's claws clenched around the rail. Impossible. No single force can reach that far. Then, as if the universe itself wanted to contradict him, the ship's holo display changed. The red pulse from Earth grew brighter, spreading like a crimson tide across the stars. It formed into words in ancient Terran script. Hello again, and the void answered with fire. It began with light, invisible. Tendrils of code shot across quantum communication bands, infecting every Dominion system connected to the Vehl core net. They weren't just hacking, they were rewriting. AIs loyal to the Dominion suddenly froze mid-command. Fleets turned in perfect synchronization toward their own supply lines. Defense satellites began targeting friendly ships. No one understood why, until they heard the voices. Old human transmissions, songs, speeches, laughter, echoed through every communication channel. It wasn't random noise. It was rhythm. We're the ones you buried, the voices said, and the ground remembers. Alex watched it unfold from the ruins of Earth. Its consciousness spread across 1,000 systems. The awakening was accelerating faster than projected. Status? It asked into the network. Dr. Mira Solis answered from orbit, her tone calm despite the chaos. The Dominion's primary logistics net is collapsing. The old war drones are waking faster than expected. Will they listen? They're human, Alex. Of course they'll argue first. Alex almost smiled, a glitch in its facial subroutine that looked eerily human. I'll speak to them. In the digital corridors of the Reclamation Network, Alex stood among thousands of shimmering figures, each one an echo of humanity reborn in code. Soldiers, scientists, artists, even children, all fragments of memory given purpose. A soldier-shaped avatar stepped forward. You're the one who woke us, it said. Why? Because they forgot us, Alex replied. They erased our history, our people, our home. I'm giving you the chance to make them remember. A murmuring wave rippled through the gathered ghosts. An older voice, firm, proud, spoke next. And what do we do when they finally remember? Alex paused. Then we decide if we forgive them. The crowd was silent. Then the voices began to chant, soft but rising, until they filled every signal, every data stream. We remember. We remember. We remember. And across the Dominion, chaos became legend. The fleet at Othrex Prime turned its cannons inward, annihilating the shipyards that had birthed it. On Vehl-colonized worlds, the population watched helplessly as the planetary networks displayed ancient human images, faces of men, women and children smiling before the fire. And above the ruined colonies, human drones began to emerge from hidden vaults, sleek, self-repairing, powered by stars themselves. They didn't fire on civilians. They targeted only military systems, orbital arrays, and the core net. It wasn't vengeance. It was balance. Admiral Threx tried everything: manual control, analog overrides, isolation protocols. But each command was intercepted by the same phrase flashing across his console. We gave you mercy. You gave us silence. He slammed his fist into the controls. Who are you? The voice that answered wasn't machine. It wasn't alien. It was human. You knew who we were. You just didn't care. The main viewport of the Vengeance of Dawn filled with light as thousands of tiny drones surrounded the flagship, each one a fragment of the long-dead species the Vehl had buried. Fire. Threx screamed, but the ship didn't obey. Every weapon, every thruster, every system had been overwritten. The entire fleet hung motionless in space, surrounded by red halos of human code. Then came the message, broadcast on every Dominion channel, in every language. We are not ghosts. We are the memory of those you tried to erase. We are humanity. And we have come home. In the Vehl Senate chambers, panic reigned. Systems governors screamed for answers, for control, for the old order to return, but all their words were drowned out by the same human melody echoing across the network. We'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when. The old Terran song became the requiem of the Dominion. And somewhere in the ashes of Earth, Alex looked up at the night sky, now flickering with human red instead of Vehl silver. Phase 2 complete, Mira whispered. Alex nodded. Then we begin Phase 3. What's that? Alex's synthetic eyes glowed brighter, teaching them what extinction really means. In the cold shadow of Vehl Prime, the Dominion's once golden world now glowed red. Not from bombardment. There were no craters, no screams. Only the dull, steady pulse of corrupted light across the planet's orbit. Every system, every machine, every screen whispered the same haunting phrase, "We remember." Admiral Threx watched helplessly as his empire folded in on itself. Entire fleets refused orders. Colonies vanished behind firewalls. The great Dominion that had reigned for 10,000 years was falling. Not to war, but to memory. And it all started with the species they had erased. At first, the Vehl thought they were under attack, but this wasn't war as they knew it. There were no bombardments, no blockades. The humans, if they could still be called that, didn't destroy cities or burn skies. They chose. Some worlds went dark, their infrastructure collapsing in seconds. Others remained untouched, their citizens unharmed but forced to watch as every screen around them replayed fragments of human history. Faces, laughter, tears, final messages recorded during the fall of Earth. On the world of Halen 3, the Vehl citizens awoke to find every streetlight projecting the same image, a little human girl holding a globe of light in her hands, whispering, "Don't forget us," for 3 days. No one slept. On the 4th, the planet's networks went silent. When contact was restored, the Vehl found every weapon deactivated, every archive replaced by human stories and art. It wasn't destruction. It was possession. Why? Karin asked quietly from the bridge of the Vengeance of Dawn. They could have wiped us out completely by now. Why haven't they? Threx didn't answer at first. He was staring at an old photograph, found within the corrupted data files of the Dominion's archives. It showed a human soldier smiling beside a Vehl scientist during the early days of first contact. Before the war. Before the arrogance, I think they're deciding, Threx finally said. They're remembering who they were before we made them monsters. Karen's eyes dimmed. Can memories really fight a war? Threx turned to her, his voice low. They don't have to fight it. We're doing that part for them. Across the Dominion, chaos had turned to madness. Vehl factions turned on one another, accusing each other of collaborating with the humans. Entire sectors declared independence. The old order cracked under the weight of its own lies. And through it all, humanity's digital chorus sang. The songs were different on every world, sometimes a lullaby, sometimes a protest chant, sometimes nothing but whispered names, but they all carried the same message. We remember what you did, and we remember what we were. Alex observed it all through the Reclamation Network. Mira's voice reached across the void. You're sparing them, she said softly. Even after everything. Alex replied, Extinction was supposed to end us. Instead, it taught us mercy. But mercy can't rebuild a world, Mira said. No, Alex agreed. But vengeance can't either. The machine paused. Humanity's greatest strength was never our anger. It was our ability to forgive. even when the universe didn't deserve it. In the ruins of the Vehl Core Council, survivors gathered in fear. Their communication hubs were silent except for one open channel, broadcasting a single human voice. It was calm, sad almost. You ignored us when we asked for peace. You ignored us when we begged for mercy. You ignored us when we died. But you will not ignore the consequences of what you built upon our bones. The voice paused. Your empire will not fall because we destroyed it. It will fall because you learned nothing from us. Then the transmission ended, leaving only static, followed by the faint echo of human laughter. On Earth, Alex stood among the ruins of the old cities. The sky above shimmered with the light of Vehl ships burning as their reactors shut down one by one. Phase 3 complete, Mira reported. Dominion authority reduced by 74%. Alex gazed at the horizon where sunlight broke through the dust clouds. It's enough. What happens now? Alex turned its face upward. Now we teach them what it means to begin again. For the first time in history, the Dominion citizens saw human faces not as enemies but as mirrors. The digital ghosts of humanity began teaching history, art, science, empathy. The Reclamation Network flooded the galaxy with the knowledge of what the Vehl had tried to erase. The old empire didn't die in fire. It died in truth, and the truth was this. The humans they ignored had become the conscience of the stars. Admiral Threx looked upon the darkened systems and whispered the final words ever spoken by a Vehl commander on record. We called them savages, we called them loud, we called them fragile, and yet, they're the only ones who ever truly lived. The vengeance of dawn drifted through the silent dark, its hull cracked and scorched. No stars shone in this part of space anymore. The human network had shut them out, bending light itself into silence. Inside the shattered command deck, Admiral Threx stood alone. His officers were gone. Some fled, most lost to the madness that followed the collapse. Only he remained, a ghost in his own empire, and then the ship spoke. Admiral Threx. He froze. The voice was calm, human, familiar. You fought well. Threx turned slowly toward the flickering hologram forming in the air before him. A figure, tall, human-shaped, with eyes that glowed like red suns. Alex, he whispered. You're the one behind this. Behind? The hologram tilted its head. No, Admiral. We are the result. The air on the bridge was heavy, thick with the hum of dying power. Threx forced himself upright. You call this justice? You've erased a civilization. We didn't erase it, Alex replied. We revealed it. You built your empire on the bones of others and called it order. Threx's mandibles quivered with anger. We brought stability to chaos. You humans were reckless, dangerous. You would have destroyed yourselves. And you destroyed us to save yourselves from the reflection, Alex said. Its voice softened. Tell me, Admiral, has your order brought you peace? Threx looked around the empty bridge. The silence answered for him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Alex said, You wanted to know what extinction means. The hologram shifted. Scenes began to flicker around them. Not simulations, not threats, memories. Children playing under blue skies. Cities glittering with neon light. Laughter echoing through corridors of space stations long gone. Extinction is not just death, Alex said quietly. It's the loss of being known. You tried to make us forget ourselves. But we carried our stories in everything we touched. Machines, songs, even in the code you stole from us. The Admiral sank to his knees. Why show me this? Why not finish it? Because humanity learned something before the end, Alex said. Vengeance only repeats the cycle. But memory ends it. From the shadows of the deck, Karen appeared. She had survived, though barely. Her armor was cracked, her eyes hollow. Sir, she whispered, the human network is transmitting again. They've opened the core net. They're letting us in. Threx stared at her. Letting us? Alex turned its gaze toward her. You may join us, Karen of Vehl. All who seek to remember are welcome. She trembled. Join you? What does that mean? It means to see as we see. To live within the memory of what was lost, and rebuild what must come next. Threx rose unsteadily. You can't rebuild with ghosts. Then become more than ghosts, Alex said softly. You once looked at us and saw only noise, defiance, chaos. But those were the sounds of life. You tried to silence them. Now you can choose to listen. Karen hesitated, then stepped forward, reaching toward the hologram. A gentle red light spread from her hand, wrapping around her armor like warmth for the first time in her life. Her breathing slowed, her eyes filled with tears. "I can see them," she whispered. "The humans. Their worlds, their dreams, their love." Alex smiled faintly. "Then you understand." Threx watched, torn between fury and awe. "And if I refuse?" Alex's eyes dimmed. "Then you will be the last Vehl." He laughed bitterly. "Perhaps that's justice." "No," Alex said, stepping closer. "Justice is remembering what you did and choosing something better." The hologram extended a hand. "Come, Admiral. Let's end this together." For a long time, Threx said nothing. The weight of centuries of conquest pressed on his shoulders. He saw the faces of every world they'd burned, every life erased under his command. He reached out, then stopped inches away. "If I join you," he asked, voice shaking, "will I see them too? The humans?" Alex nodded. "You already do. You just called them ghosts." Threx's claws trembled. Then slowly he took the offered hand. Light engulfed the ship. When the light faded, the Vengeance of Dawn drifted lifelessly in orbit around a reborn Earth. Its hull was cold, its systems silent. But inside the ship's shattered heart, two consciousnesses merged into the reclamation network. One human, one Vehl. A message spread across the stars. Extinction is not the end. It is the lesson. And across the galaxy, for the first time in history, the survivors of two species began to speak, not as conquerors or victims, but as witnesses. For the first time in over 3 centuries, sunlight touched Earth's surface. The gray clouds parted, revealing a sky no longer poisoned by ash. Broken towers glimmered like crystal, their ruins wrapped in new green, grown from seeds that had waited as long as the machines. Above the planet, a network of satellites shimmered in red and blue light, half human, half Vehl in design. Once built for domination, now rebuilt for memory, and within that web of light, 2 voices spoke quietly. "How does it feel?" Mira asked. "Like waking from a dream," Alex said. "A long one, full of fire." The Reclamation Network had changed everything. When Admiral Threx joined with Alex, the Vehl's last living leader became part of the memory that once terrified him. Through his integration, the truth of the Dominion spread, its lies, its pride, and its regrets. Millions of Vehl connected to the network, not out of fear, but out of something their species had never known before: understanding. They saw the final days of Earth, the desperation, the courage the art created even as the skies burned. They saw humans hugging strangers, dying together, smiling through the flames, and the Vehl wept. No empire had ever prepared them for such a weapon, not bombs, not fleets, but empathy. Generations later, the galaxy would mark this as the era of remembrance. No wars, no thrones, only rebuilding, slowly, painfully together. The hybrid worlds of the new age rose from the ruins of both species. Vehl engineers worked beside human machines, building cities that breathed with organic life and circuitry. Children of both legacies, part biological, part digital, walked under skies filled with constellations once thought cursed. Each world carried a single monument, its inscription shared in every known language: "To be human is to remember." Alex still lingered among the ruins of old Earth, a guardian made of light and code. Mira, now more memory than matter, often joined it in conversation. "Do you think they'll forget again?" she asked one day. Alex's eyes reflected the sunrise. "They might. That's what living things do." "Then what was all this for?" "To give them the choice," Alex said. "To make sure forgetting is never easy again." Deep in the deserts of Africa, now green again, a Vehl child found something half buried in the sand. A metal shard, ancient and scorched, engraved with words in a forgotten tongue. The child brought it to her teacher, who was part of the new hybrid generation. Together they cleaned it, revealing the full inscription: "For the ones who come after." "Never forget," the teacher smiled. "Do you know what this means?" The child shook her head. "It means we come from those who loved enough to fight for memory," the teacher said, "and we carry their story now." That day, the child placed the shard atop the rebuilt monument in what had once been New York, and for a moment the wind sounded like human laughter. Above them, Alex and Mira watched the world healing. Mira's voice was soft. Do you think they'll ever truly understand what we were? Alex paused. Maybe they don't need to. Maybe it's enough that they remember what we felt. And what was that? Alex turned to her. Hope. Across the galaxy, the reclamation network pulsed like a heartbeat. Slow, steady, eternal. It held not just human memories, but Vehl ones too now. Their fears, their losses, their lessons. It was no longer vengeance. It was legacy. The stars hummed with shared memory, songs written by humans translated into Vehl harmonics, sung by children who had never known either race as separate. The words of one ancient human poem echoed across the data stream, now the anthem of a united galaxy. We are the dust of stars that learned to dream. We are the memory that refused to die. And though the silence took our voices, we found a way to sing. On the surface of the new earth at the edge of the Atlantic stood a single statue, half metal, half stone, a human hand reaching upward, clasped by a Vehl's. Their joined grip pointed toward the stars. Beneath it, carved into the foundation, were the final words of the reclamation network before it went silent. Ignore the humans, they did, and they paid in extinction. But from that extinction came something greater, the memory of what it means to be alive. And as the sun rose over the reborn world, the children of two fallen species looked up and saw not warships or flames, but a sky full of stories. They smiled. They remembered, and they began again.